Okay, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our wonderful speaker today, Salam Ali Hariri. Salam was born in Baghdad, Iraq. He completed his high school before heading toward US. Salam is married to a beautiful and wonderful Sahar, his wife, and has beautiful children of Amir and Noura. Salam completed his bachelor degree in information system management as well as his MBA in the US. He did that while working full-time and attending evening school. We're very proud of you, Salam. He started his career as a programmer, and presently he manages a large portfolio of global data and analytics projects in the health care industry. Salam developed strategies to support various initiatives for Iraq and the USA in the area of leadership, community service, vision into action, professional network, youth, media, and civic engagement. Salam has a passion, and I witnessed it firsthand as working with him in the education committee. He is great in supporting community projects, engaged to make a difference, with high interest to develop leadership skills for the youth to be more active. Salam volunteers to support many nonprofit organizations. For instance, the Salam Education, he's been a treasure to have him on our committee to work on self-development and to flourish and deliver on his passion. I'm proud of you, Salam, and give you the floor to impress everybody. So, Salam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ilham. This is very kind of you. I really appreciate it. I'm so proud to have that many community members to join us in this workshop. I have a lot of excitement about this topic, and I want to thank my team, Doha, Ban, and Dr. Ilham, and others have really worked so hard, and I couldn't have prepared for this without their help. I wanted to dedicate this session in memory of my parents. They gave me the best gift that I could have asked for, and that's my name, Salam. And I believe there is a reason, a purpose for that. And I really believe that I need to work and stand for my name and try to spread peace in every area that I can. And one of these areas, I chose this topic because I believe understanding our personal styles, understanding personal styles of those around us is going to help us build better relationships. It's going to help us adjust to the emotions and the feelings of others. So what is the big deal? What's the big deal of learning about personal styles? Once we understand our style, it's going to help us basically understand our emotions better, why we do what we do sometimes, and also learn about others around us once we know their personal style, and then understand how to respond and how to relate to each of these personal styles, and adjust when needed and build better relationships accordingly. So it is really for our own benefit and the benefit of those around us. Now, what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is our capability and ability of every individual to recognize first our own emotions, to relate to ourselves better, and then take care of our own emotions, and then attend to other people's emotions around us. And that is in our own family, relatives, and also people at work. It really applies everywhere that you can think about it. And basically, when needed, adjust to the environment and try to shape our responses accordingly. And this is basically a skill. Once we develop that skill further, our behavior, our leadership skills, our performance in the relationships would keep expanding and improving. I'm going to share a little bit about the cycle of growth and change. And by the way, these materials, I do not pretend to be an expert, but I just basically love learning. And I attended a lot of trainings in this area and leadership and so forth. And this is one of the best trainings that I attended. It was free for me, I offered free for our company. And this is a Dale Carnegie materials. And this is one of the famous organizations in relationship development, friendships, and so forth. You probably heard of the very famous first seller for Dale Carnegie, How to Make Friends and Influence People. Now, the cycle of growth and change in our personal styles starts with our attitudes. And basically, that is what we are born with and also what we develop during our lifetime and in the environment that we live in. So it includes our needs, what we want to do, what we care about, and what motivates us, and how do we show up, and whether or not we care to learn from others, and how much we care to get from others. So basically, we develop and we learn a lot of things. So we develop our knowledge. And there are some fundamentals that we learn, whether it's at school or from our parents or the environment that we live in. We develop a lot of concepts. We learn a lot of principles, right? So once we get all of that learning, we start expanding our skill sets, right? So we start practicing some of these things, and we come stronger in each of those things. And especially if we get coaching in this process, that helps us more. The more we practice these skill sets, the more it becomes a habit for us. We don't feel it. It just gradually expand as a habit. And then we start measuring it and start recognizing it. So with that, I want to share with you basically, if you have not had a chance to do the personality assessment, I'm going to put in the chat for you to do that at this point. So if you haven't done it, please click on the link that I'm sharing here that I just shared in the chat. So click on the chat and you would see that link, and go ahead and once you click on that link, you will see some instructions there, and it will tell you there that this is a private information. Nobody will see this information except yourself, but you can feel free to share it with others that you care about. And that process is going to take you about 3 minutes or so. Go ahead and answer the question. So basically, you will see a screen, and it's better to do that on your laptop if you have one, or desktop. But if you are not having that available, you can do it also on iPhone. So basically, you will see each of these rows. In each of the rows, A, you would choose whatever you feel you are like. It's not what you want to be. It's like, what's your natural you, right? Don't spend too much time thinking which one you prefer, but think about what you think is like. What's your personal style? The more you present or choose what your natural being, the more accurate your personal assessment would be. So go ahead and choose each of those. In case you cannot get to that assessment, or you prefer not to do it online, you can go ahead and do that on paper. So if you don't have a piece of paper handy, go ahead and bring a piece of paper. And if you're doing it on your iPhone or laptop, after you finish all the answers for each of the rows, A through J, you can hit submit and you will see the results. But if you like to do it manually on paper, so this is how you can do it. You write the letter A for the first row, and whatever you pick, the column A, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So you type A, or write on paper A, let's say 2, and then B, 3, and C, 1, whatever fits you on these words, whatever represents you, and you represents your personality. So go ahead and choose whatever you are like, and for each of those. So once you choose all the rows, A1, B3, whatever, at the end, when you finish that, then you go ahead and add up each column, each of the column, and put the total on the bottom. So I'll give you another maybe 2 minutes to complete this assessment. And if you did it on your laptop or iPhone, go ahead and take a screenshot. Pay attention to the total. And just to let you know, the highest total is what your personality like, the dominant personal style that you have. And sometimes people have very close to areas. So whatever you feel between the two closest, but if you have very heavy total in one of them, that's your dominant style. And in your iPhone or laptop, you will see them ranked for you, which makes it even easier. So number one is your highest dominant personal style. Number two would be the second highest. And sometimes you are kind of very close to rank number one and so forth. So you can try that. Again, if you did it on paper, you add up how many of number one, how many number two, and how many number three, and add those totals, and you can write, each of these columns total. Give you another minute. If you haven't completed, take your time. And again, if these words are not very clear, just make a guess. In the future, you can redo this personal assessment at your leisure. But it's great if you can figure out your personal style in this session, because the next slides you would find interesting. And I hope I can create some value for you on this explanation. All right. So if you completed, that is good. And if you're still working on it, keep working on it. So basically, again, at the end, you will see the totals. So let me explain this. So basically, there are multiple personality assessment tools. Some of you may have heard of Myers-Briggs, a good, again, tool for personal style assessment. Many other tools out there. You can Google and find many other tools. This one, I found one of the most popular, and it's easier than others to relate to. And I will explain why this one is easier. So at the end, basically, we're talking about 4 different styles at the high level, right? So there is the people that are referred to as expressors. There are people referred to as a driver, people referred to as amiable, and the last one, analytical. And I'm going to explain what each of those mean. So hopefully by now, you identify with yourself as one of these 4. Whatever the highest total you got, that means that's your dominant. Again, there is the secondary dominant style and so forth. By now, everybody got it? Okay. Gonna move to ask Doha or Ban to do the first poll. Go ahead, Doha.
Yeah.
And so Doha
We're going to present you with the first poll. Based on your assessment, which of the following ranked number 1? Please choose. I will give you about a minute.
So just enter what is, and by the way, nobody knows, just to make you feel comfortable, nobody would know who is what. So this is private. This is a polling tool that is just, I'm going to explain why it's going to be interesting for you. So feel free to put your whatever you found. Nobody else, again, other than you, will discover or know. It's your private information. You don't have to share it unless you like to. So just to let you know, the host don't get to answer the poll. So you, Dhaha, and I are excluded from entering our polls, but everybody else have the ability to add their numbers. So again, if you have identified your style, so far we have 13 out of 34 responded with their personal styles. All right, I'm gonna go ahead at this point. Don't keep it, Dhaha, for a minute. I'm gonna share this. So you notice, this is very, very important. You notice that each of us have different styles. And it's interesting that more associate their style as a drivers. My gut feel, I could be wrong, but my gut feel that we have less than that percentage of drivers. And I tell you why I'm thinking that way. We sometimes respond to the questions because we like what it says. It's not because it's our natural style, right? So for instance, I'm going to explain later on, a lot of us like to be drivers, right? Like to drive and lead and all of that. But is that our natural style? So that's a question. But you can see we are super different. We are created differently. And again, I want to emphasize, there is no wrong or right here. That each of us are created differently. So that is, and I'm going to explain about this in a minute.
Okay.
All right. So so this is actually we stopped and this is the total. If you haven't seen the total, this is the total that we got so far. Different styles. I hope everybody can see it. Bandaha, you can see the total, correct?
Yeah. Driver
Okay.
is dominant.
Is dominant, but I'm going to explain again. I personally believe not as high, but we all like to be drivers. So probably sometimes we choose that because that's our like. So if you're okay, I'm going to stop sharing this to go to the next item. All right. So the next question is, what is the big deal? Why is this important, right? So, and why, why we need to care about this? So it's really about our emotional intelligence. When we learn each of our styles and the people around us, we can relate better. And I'm going to go through that briefly. And then we can adjust many cases our behavior, our treatment of others based on that. And we will understand our own emotions better based on that. And with that, we can really have more control in our relationships and adjust accordingly. There is a very famous saying by Dale Carnegie. When dealing with people, remember that you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but creatures of emotions. What does that mean? That means human beings are more driven by our own emotions than controlled by our logic. So that is very important thing to pay attention to. Some cases our emotion drive our decisions, right? Now, this slide and the following slide, probably the most important in this session. So I need full attention to these two slides because I'm going to explain why it's so important. Now, this slide explain and describe the characteristics of each style. And by the way, this is not my own invention. Again, this is how Dale Carnegie define or identify each of the styles, right? But I'm going to explain each of them a little bit more than what it says there. So the first style we talked about is the driver, right? The driver is try to control the situation, try to drive, try to make things happen, right? So they are result oriented, they are ambitious usually. And by the way, this is usually, it doesn't always fit all the people, but usually people with high dominance on their personal style usually have these characteristics, right? So usually the driver is self-confident. Usually the driver is in hurry. They're straightforward. They want to be direct and to the point, right? So they like to take charge of meetings, and they tend sometimes to be blunt. Sometimes they are impatient. Sometimes they like to interrupt or sometimes become aggressive. Why? Because they want to get things done. That's the key driver for them. They want to make it happen. So that's the main characteristic of the driver. Want to get closure, want to create things, want to make it happen. That's a big positive, by the way. But there are things that stand in the way, as I mentioned. Now, the second style is the expressor, right? And usually they have social influence. Usually they are positive and they have positive expectancy, right? And they are expressive. They like to share. You can see the person with hands up. So they are usually cheerleaders. They want to have fun. They want to get things happening and so forth. It's the happening group, right? They are usually, not always, but usually extroverts, right? You know, the introverts and extroverts. Expressors, usually introverts. They are usually very friendly and charismatic, use hands and facial expressions when they talk. You can tell sometimes the styles. And by the way, people with very high dominance in their personal style usually would have more of these characteristics, right, of that style. They usually enthusiastic, and they usually like social gathering because they are extroverts, right? And they usually like working with people, with groups and so forth, and they strive to include others in the group, right? One other characteristic you would notice about the expressor, they either like some things or some people, and they make them very cheered and want to promote them, or sometimes they dislike the situation or the place or the restaurant, and they share their displease with it very clearly. What is the amiable? Amiable is a person that is usually patient, usually has a composure, and they like to play with a team. They are usually very team player. They're usually relaxed and casual. They are usually good listeners. And they encourage others to talk. They want to create peace. They want to support others. And they tend sometimes to be quiet and indirect, right? They prefer usually to follow than lead, right? Like working in small group. So amiable, there is another word for it, some personal style assessment, they call them the supporters. Amiable is basically equal to supporter. People that like to support others in what they are doing or trying to accomplish, right? However, again, amiable supporters like somebody else to lead and help them get the results that they want, right? The last style, analytical. Analytical are people that, right, like to be precise. They like precision. They have that analytical mind. Their mind is always spinning, right? And they are quality oriented. They want things to be close to perfect, right? Usually, not always, their office is neat and organized. They like to collect data and they like to plan. They are big planners. If you want a good planner in your team, you find an analytical person because that's what they love to do, right? And they get bogged down with details. They want to analyze the information. Give them data, they would love it, right? And they usually speak slowly and focus on facts. They don't want just like information that is not substantial and not proven. They like accurate information. They avoid mistakes, and they rarely talk in meetings. Some of them talk more, but others talk less. And they go by, again, facts and objectives. So these are the styles that are there, and we're going to talk a little bit more about them. But this is very interesting slide that I put together, and it shows how would it look like when we are lacking emotional intelligence, right? When we are not paying attention to the different styles of different people, when we think others should think like us, when we don't understand why others think differently, we tend to get angry, we get frustrated, we don't understand why the heck are they thinking this way, right? So again, when we are not paying to these things, to our emotional intelligence, things would go south. And I put also some of the weapons there that, a frying pan, we can use that sometimes in fights, or chifchir or na'al, right? So just for humor, I put some of these things. Now, so that is the lack of emotional intelligence. Now, what if we really try to pay attention to the different styles of people and work on it and care about it and pay attention to it? This is, by the way, very easy to say, but very hard to put in practice. It's a matter of practicing it every day, paying attention to it every day, reminding each other every day. Again, the key is there is no wrong and right, there is no bad and good. All of the styles are good. So let me tell you examples of that. Leaders of companies usually are drivers, right? However, the best leaders are these leaders that know how to work with these other three styles, right? If the leader is not that good in relating to the other styles, they would not grow. I can tell you that. So I can tell you these are so critical in not only building personal relationships, but at our careers. Once we get to know people better, once we can relate to them better and work with them based on their style. So how do we do that? Drivers. If we know a person that is of a driver personality, that means we need to get to the point with them. They don't have that much time. They want to keep moving, right? They don't want to waste time. They don't have that much patience, right? And they like to be involved in the decision making. They get cheered when you give them the leadership, right? They like to be challenged, right? They use facts when confront, you have to use facts basically when you confront them because they go by facts, right? And you need to give them authority, some authority, you need to recognize them in that. And they don't want to be time wasted, right? And they like to be recognized. So that's the driver. That's how we relate and deal with the drivers, because they like to control the situation. They are ambitious and they are result oriented. How about the expressor? Again, the expressor, you want to have fun, you go associate with them. They are your cheerleaders. Guess what? Expressors are chosen usually for marketing positions, right? Why? Because they are extroverts. Sales also the same thing. They're extroverts. They want to go and make things happen. They want to sell for you. They want to promote you, right? To become a friend also of expressor in order to get the help from them to promote your agenda, right? And be friendly with them, be personable, include them in projects, and help them to get their goals accomplished. Communicate frequently with them, give them the updates on the status, and find ways for them and give them the space for verbal communication with you. How about the amiable? Again, amiable are supporter, right? You need to show care when you're working with amiable because they are motivated by caring for them, and they again like to have that kumbaya type of relationship. I love you, love me type of relationship, right? And they like to chat. That's the nature, right? They are patient. They take their time chatting, and they would listen to you. So they like the chit chat. They don't want to be hurried. They like to have personal relationships, right? And then communicate changes and give them time to adjust that, to adapt to the changes, right? It's not that easy sometimes for them to accept changes. Give them their time, give them their space to do that, and ask them about themselves, right? Go deep into that. They like to be cared for, obviously, right? Encourage them to speak up, because again, most of the amiables are introvert. Not all of them, but most. Again, it depends on the where is the dominant style. And give them recognition. Recognize they are being supporters and caring for others, right? The last style, analytical. Again, they like to focus on facts. They like logic. Guess what? They like to be consulted. They like to give advices usually. They like to help you on with a plan. They like to set up a roadmap. That's the way that analytical people work. They want to get down to business. They want to present the facts and the data. They go by facts, right? They like to be asked for their opinion again, and they want to define the roles and responsibilities because they want it to be clear and obvious, right? Encourage them to speak up in meetings because they like that. They would be motivated with that. And let them, it's okay to make mistakes. They worry about making mistakes very much. But when you understand that that is their worry, that they may make mistakes, then you put them in comfort. I hope this slide is very helpful, as I mentioned, in care. Guess what? Once we relate better to each of these styles, when we use this emotional intelligence and put it into practice, once we leverage all of these skills, then trust me, relationships would build much, much better. And you can see these in these examples. People are, in distress. You see the people around them, listening to them, feeling for them, the husband and the wife, caring for each other, and, putting hands on each other, supporting each other, caring for each other, and understanding these emotions that I'm listing there, right? So it's a huge difference when we are applying our emotional intelligence. Again, easier said than done, but the more we practice that, the better we do on that. This is a kind of homework that I encourage each of you to put in practice. Number one, identify at least one person with whom you like to work in the future or whom you deal with regularly, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a child or parent or a career coworker, manager, anybody that you like to choose. And you can choose obviously multiple people, but put this in practice. The faster, the more you put this in practice, the more you learn and the better you become on this. And then pay attention to what do you know about that person and that her or his style, right? And what do you need to adjust? How do you adjust your behavior in dealing with them? What is more effective to do that, right? If you don't adjust your behavior, what would happen? Think about that. If you really don't care about their interest, it would go south, obviously. And the opposite, if you really pay more attention to their style and how you need to deal with them based on that, you will see huge results, huge benefits. All right, I'm going to end up with just sharing what are kind of other topics in the future can cover. I'm going to also share again about our next event. So basically, there are a lot of wonderful materials we have, the Education Committee. In the future, we're going to share about strengthening our relationship, and we can talk about gaining willing cooperation from others. What kind of things we can do to get others to cooperate more with us, right? And then about leadership and leadership skills development is huge, especially I would say for our youth to have amazing career. And mashallah, Our youth are already doing wonderful, but these are opportunities to keep growing. And again, we'll talk about the relationship pyramid in the future and so forth. I'm going to end up with 2 polls. So if you could help us, Daha, with the poll number 2. Thank you.
Sure. Let's start with poll number 2. Here we go.
So basically, did you find value in this session? Was that valuable to you? Did you learn anything on it? Or was it waste of time? Feel free to respond. And please don't feel I will get offended. I would love some no's because that I will learn from you anytime. I would appreciate any learning. By the way, feel free to connect with me afterwards and tell me how can I improve. Okay. If everybody responded or like to respond, should I end the poll or anybody like to do final choice? Okay. I'm going to end the poll at this point. Keep increasing. I'm going to give it a few more seconds. Anybody else want to respond? All right. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. So we got 23 that responded yes. And I didn't get any no. You are so kind to me. I really appreciate that. That's very wonderful of you. I hope you're not بس مو مجاملة, but I appreciate it. So let's do the final poll, the half we may. The next one, actually.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna close this one. So go ahead and share the next one. No, poll number 3.
Here you go.
There you go. So the next question is, do you like to have more sessions about relationships and about leadership development? Is this an area of interest for you? Wow, I love that. I love that. You guys are wonderful.
I know.
I love to have this kind of audience. My gosh.
تشجيع.
This is a wonderful community.
Encouragement.
I tell
Thank
you.
you.
I love that. Okay, wonderful. If everybody had a chance to respond, I'm gonna end this poll. And all right, so with that, again, I'm gonna share with you again about our next wonderful session. So basically, the next session is gonna be by Dr. Ilham Sarraf Rob, and that is on October 2nd, and it's going to be Saturday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. We love for each of you to join us and share with others. The more you join us, the more motivated and excited we become. And this is really the least that we can do to serve you as our wonderful community. So we look forward for each of you to join us in this session in focusing on communication skills and having healthier relationship. With that, I'm gonna open the floor for Q&A, and feel free to please put your questions to make it easier in the chat. So click on the chat button on the bottom, just click on chat and type your, it's easier to manage it that way. Type your question in the chat. I'll be more than happy. And by the way, if you have to go, I know it's getting late for some of you. We still like at 8:47. We planned at least till 9 p.m. But if you like to stay for Q&A, you're welcome to stay. All right. So Daha or Ban, feel free to share if you receive any question that I can answer. I'll be. Oh, try.
We got a great question from one of the attendees, and it's a question I wanted to ask you myself. People may have a mix of 2 or more personalities. I know I was spread across all 4, so it's like a full spectrum of multiple personality disorder that I have. How do you deal with that when people have got bits and pieces from different personalities?
It is a really wonderful question. I apologize. Actually, I meant to talk about that more earlier. So I'm glad that you asked. So if I would say, congratulate yourself if you have multiple high-level totals. Let me explain why. That means you learned and you're developing skill sets to balance that with other areas, right? So that means you are adjusting. I personally am trying to learn more from others of different personal styles. The more I kind of adjust to the other styles, the better I can work with others, right? So now, if you have two of equal level, let's say two totals of let's say 4 and 4, and then that means you probably about even between two styles. And then in that case, based on my explanation, choose the one that you relate to more, right? Again, there is definitely no wrong and right here. All the styles are amazing. All the styles are needed. I can tell you, we cannot live without all the styles, right? We have to have the drivers. We have to have the expressors. We have to have the amiable, the supporters. When you have to have non-analyticals. No wrong and right. All are wonderful styles. It's just a matter of learning how to work with each style. That's the key. That if you got any value of this, is that learning how to work with each styles. And what I'm going to do, by the way, we're recording the session, so we're going to post it in our website. You can listen to it, you can share it with others, and we're going to also email it in the near future. So feel free to listen to it, share it with others. My hope is to have any benefit that I can provide and learn from each of you, inshallah. Other questions?
So now we have a follow-up to that.
Sure.
Question. How many personalities could a person have? Could they be all 4? Is it possible for that to happen, or do they have to have a dominant personality?
You don't have to have a dominant personality, really. You could be kind of a little of each. Again, I would highly recommend that each of you, and myself, I always do that, actually. From time to time, I redo these assessments myself. Why? Because the first time, a human being tend to look for what's right and wrong. And again, I want to emphasize there is no right and wrong. Just choose your natural way. Don't try to analyze it, right? Choose your natural way and see where is your dominant, right? But again, if you have multiple, very close, that's something to celebrate. Nothing wrong with that.
Everyone's making very positive comments. Everyone's enjoying it. They're finding great benefit from it. We have Namir saying that this is going to be useful for his clients in his business. Also, a comment that says, it's good to know your personality. This is from Ahsamar. But what do you think about having other people rate your personality? Because how you see yourself may not be how other people see you. This is your dream of yourself, I think.
Oh, Samar, this is an amazing question. Thank you for asking that. Actually, I'm glad that you brought this up. Why? Because we do need to listen to what others think of us, right? So the key really is to be open for feedback, not to be offended about feedback. And in a lot of the personal development training I went through in my life, and I love those. I tell you, I believe the sky is the limit. If you send me to 10 trainings each year in the area of psychology, personality, and relationship and leadership, I would love to go to all of them. So yes, Samar, it's great to listen how others see us, right? Because we learn from that. And again, because I mentioned, sometimes we are kind of blinded to things that others can see from us, but we don't notice it. Why? Because we like to see ourselves are right or in the right path, but getting feedback from others, getting others to point out certain style characteristics is very, very helpful, right? Sometimes we are blinded basically on seeing that. So getting that feedback is very, very helpful. Again, as long as we try to ask each other to present it smoothly. No finger pointing, no attack in that, because again, there's no wrong and right. It's all perfect. Good question, Samar.
We've got some more questions coming in.
Yeah.
Do you think
Yeah.
people with the same style should work together, or people of different styles work together? How easy is it to work with each other?
Very good. Very good question. Excellent question. So in many cases, people of the same style is excellent. In some cases, it's not good. Let me give you a couple of examples. If you have the amiable, I mentioned earlier, the amiable style is a supporter. It is amazing to have multiple supporters work together. Give you an example. Nurses. It's amazing to have a nurse that is amiable, supporter. Why? Because they care for others, right? That if you figure out your nurse is amiable, oh, you're lucky. You got such nurse, right? Because their nature is to care for others, to support others, right? Teachers, the same thing. It's amazing when you have teachers that are supporters and amiable, right? And now, let me give you the opposite example, drivers. Now, guess what happens when you have multiple drivers? Each wants to drive. Each wants to take charge. It's difficult usually, right? Unless they learn how to work with each other. They learn how to put boundaries for each other and enable each other. And guess what is the best approach to handle that? By defining roles and responsibilities. Let's say, just give you two examples. If it is at work, 2 drivers, and if it is at home, 2 drivers. At work, you do the roles and responsibilities. You define that. This is your focus, and this is my focus. That's how you manage it, right? At home, let's say the husband and the wife are both of them drivers. What do? You ask each of them to take certain responsibilities that they like, they have passion for. Again, the same thing for career. So for instance, 2 drivers, let's say husband and wife, one of them say, I like finance. I like to do our finance. Give them that, right? And the other person may be not that interested in that, and so forth. You give them each other different responsibilities. And that's part of the communication, agreeing on what each person focus on and how to arrange it. And again, Dr. Ilham is going to focus on communication. That's how you adjust to each other's style and learn how to arrange based on the different personal styles. I hope I answered that question fully.
Thank you. We've got so many more.
I love it. I love it.
What do you do? Yeah, the questions that keep coming the more we talk about this. So it's really struck a chord with everyone. How do you respond when a coworker challenges you? I'm going to ask you that question. And I think the next webinar by Ilham actually just talks about this. So
I was going to say that.
Brian asked this question. Yeah.
Excellent.
Please attend the next webinar on October the 2nd. But go ahead, Salam, please go ahead.
No, exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Thank you, Ban, for saying that. That's more of a focus of the next session. And we, by the way, we arrange this in this sequence for good reasons. And you will notice when you attend Dr. Ilham Sarraf's session, you will learn why this flow is perfect. Because once you know about the styles, then you focus more on the different communication and so forth, and about challenging each other and how do you deal with the challenge. Again, the challenge area depends on the personal style. So basically what I shared earlier, if you are talking with a driver, you adjust your relationship and relate it to them based on their style. Same thing with other styles, right? So it's really adjusting to that style, but Dr. Ilham will expand and go deeper into this, inshallah. Next question.
Another question. Yeah, another question is, how is the subconscious side of every one of us affecting our emotional intelligence? What is the relationship between these two things? I really love this question. It comes into psychology, which Yeah, and
Exactly.
Dr. Ilham is going to, yeah.
Expand on that too. Yeah, you're right. So the subconscious mind, in my opinion, it's all about being right or wrong, right? Human being in nature like to be right most of the time, right? Most of us like to be right. In human nature, it's hard to admit when we are wrong, right? So that subconscious mind tells us, oh, don't acknowledge you are wrong. Just stay where you are. You are right. You are right. Say you are right, right? So that is the subconscious mind that tries to control us. And what we need to do is push back. Why? It's all about humility, being humble, right? Just one quick thing related to that. Think about the biggest leaders in history. One common characteristics about biggest, most admired leaders. Let me qualify that. Most admired leader historically, prophets, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, all of the leaders, right? They are usually humble. So acknowledging when we are wrong, acknowledging our strengths and weaknesses to others, connect us better with others. It helps a lot. It makes a difference. Good question.
We've got two more. We've got two more questions, and we're at time, so we'll end with those two questions. And please, everyone, Salam has invited you to connect with him if you've got more questions. He's more than happy to answer them afterwards. But before we wrap up, the last two questions. One for Mayada. What if we lose ourselves in the process of trying to adapt to everyone? I love this question. I was very excited when someone asked that. It's a great question.
What if we lose ourselves?
Lose ourselves. So you're always trying to be able to work with others, but what about you? What happens to you and your personality and yourself?
Excellent question, Mayada. Excellent question. You noticed when I started talking about personal style assessment, I emphasize first to take care of ourselves. That is the most important. Take care of our own emotions first, right? So I'm sure most of you that remember on flying, on the flights in the plane, what do they say when they make the announcements, right? Put on your own mask before you put the mask on your child, right? Think of that. Think deep of that. That tells you that first we have to take care of our own emotions, to take care of our own being. Some people don't pay attention to that and like to accommodate everything to others, and they get stressed, and sometimes they bottle up and they explode one day or another. And that is another area that Dr. Ilham is going to get into. But excellent question, Mayada. It's very important first to take care of our own. Then we pay attention to others and how do we relate to others.
Last question is from Ola. If we meet someone, how can we find the right away about their personality? How do we assess them, I guess, is the question. Yeah.
Excellent question. So some people are easier than others to figure out their personal styles. Some of them much harder. And usually the ones that are easier to figure out is very high dominant style. Like for instance, I'll give you an example, a driver. Sometimes you can tell in meetings, in dealing with people that their style is driver. They want to get things done. And again, maybe it's excellent to know that they want to get things done, right? Without them, things may not get done, right? Amiable, supporter, a caring person, working on different type of positions that they care for others, you can tell. But sometimes it's harder. And usually it's harder when there is no very clear dominant. Sorry. So when there's no clear dominant style, and then it's a little bit harder to tell that, what's their style. But one way to do it is to, ask them to, invite them to do an assessment, one of the online assessments, and if they are open to do that, especially if somebody you care about, around you, family members, I highly, highly, highly recommend all family members to do this and practice this. Oh, it's amazing, especially if you take it positively. In my opinion, these tools is like the internet or like social media. If you use it the right way, you benefit. But if you use it for finger pointing, that would be painful, right? So it's really how do we use it? But excellent question. Sometimes, Ala, it's easier to tell, but sometimes you have to do the assessment or help them do the assessment to figure that out.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Salam. We're slightly over, so I'd like to hand it back to Duha, who's going to wrap the session. Duha, take it away.
Thank you, Salam. That was really a good session. And I hope everybody really benefited from it or take away something from it. Appreciate all of you coming. And if you like to still hang out and have more questions for Salam, please do. Other than that, please, we'll see you at our next session, which is on October 2nd for Dr. Ilham. And please go to the website, salam.org, so you can register.
Again, I want to thank each of you for participating and joining this session. It's really an honor for me to share this with you. And I love it. I love all your questions. And again, like I mentioned, if you don't have my contact information, you can get it from any of the friends on the call. But I would love to connect with you about these things because I have a lot of passion you can tell about it. Thank you, everybody. Again,
thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna stop the recording.
Yes, please.